on everything going on. Right now, we're following this foreign policy development, which the world is taking seriously, tops many front pages, even as its core premise is unserious and would be costly for the U.S., and is rejected by experts and leaders in the United States in both parties. The U.S. has played a large military role in the Middle East since invading Iraq and Afghanistan. Those costly occupations all began when hawkish conservative Republicans initially started the Iraq War. And it was first opposed by some liberals, you might recall, like Howard Dean, who actually joins us later tonight. Later by top Democrats like Obama. And then after United States majorities did turn on that war and occupation, which is back in the news tonight, only then did Donald Trump start following the lead. In fact, he attacked his rivals, the Bushes, on that point, and hawkish Republican foreign policy over the years. Ultimately, Trump did shift GOP foreign policy against some of those hawkish records. By the 2024 campaign, he was routinely vowing to end foreign wars and U.S. spending blood or treasure abroad, and especially in the Middle East. Let me just tell you up front, because I try to keep it very direct here. Many voters believed him. Many Trump voters believe that. They accepted his claimed policy against U.S. involvement in occupation as a positive. And we heard that in surveys and interviews. Now, 2 weeks into returning to the White House, President Trump is floating a plan, however unseriously, which breaks that vow. His comments alongside the Israeli leader about plunging the U.S. into another Mideast occupation in an area that everyone knows, a region that could be as dangerous and complex as Iraq, if not more so, is the story that matters, even though I'm going to show you why it is not exactly how it looks and people should be careful overreacting. Trump saying that under his leadership, quote, the U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip. Here's that statement alongside memory lane.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. It is not the duty of U.S. troops to solve ancient conflicts in faraway lands.
That is the contrast. And for some time, he has very publicly gone after anyone affiliated with those kind of foreign conflicts, especially in the Middle East.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake. The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy.
Let's see, they're all war hawks sitting in Washington saying, let's send 10,000 troops over there. I guess you have your war hawk who's in Washington, who's talking about sending troops to occupy, of all places, at all times, the Gaza Strip. Now, let me keep it real with you. For Trump supporters, the choice on a day like today is to believe him now and acknowledge everything you just heard the past claims have proven false, or to still not believe him now, to say this isn't really it, this is disingenuous rhetoric and it's designed for some later special purpose. And these remarks have managed to play poorly for both the Palestinian community, which wants a homeland, and the Israeli community, which, coming since October 7th in this war, wants to make sure there is some security over there. The Jerusalem Post reporting this just isn't even remotely feasible. Many leaders in Arab states and Palestinian allies say that this kind of forced eviction and occupation is wrong, is against international law, would displace the Palestinian people, after all this, out of even Gaza. Leaders and diplomats in many other nations are basically aghast. They're pushing back. Experts say the plan is unworkable. Some are throwing Trump this sort of bone of saying, well, since it can't work and it's a bad idea and nobody really wants it, maybe it's just some fake special threat that would not be enacted, another so-called gambit or tactic. Okay. I'm familiar, with paying attention to the news, I'm familiar with that kind of post hoc rationalization of something somebody said. But let's just be serious, even in these somewhat unserious moments. Even negotiating claims have consequences. That's why being a peace or hostage negotiator is a tough job. It is not something you just improvise on the fly while hostages are waiting around and might be killed. or while peace eludes us and multiple countries with multiple different populations face more slaughter. So, excuse me if I'm not interested in the post hoc, made up, throw him a bone explanation of why he's improvising something that need not be improvised. People train for decades for the high stakes work of any such diplomacy, particularly in the Middle East. Many experts, as well as American conservatives and Republicans, actually view this as a knock not only for Trump, but for Israel. That Donald Trump squandered this high stakes diplomatic moment, appearing with the Israeli leader in this volatile time after some of those hostage exchanges. And you can say he's the president, he can take it back. Okay, but you don't get a bilat with the Israeli leader every day, even when you're the president of the U.S. So this is what he did with the moment. Distracting, effectively having the result of rallying more concern against the United States and Israel, even as the concerned people say, hey, he doesn't mean it or he'll learn, he can't do what he said he's going to do. And the Republicans, who very rarely knock Trump, at least in these few weeks of the honeymoon of his initial second term, even top Republicans are publicly blasting this. Senator Paul, citing what I showed you, Trump's past vows against being a hawk, against sending your money or even your sons and daughters off to another Mideast occupation, saying, I thought we voted for America first. Other Republicans dismiss the plan as just naive at best, and they object to any step towards the thing that Trump claimed when he wanted your vote that he was against, sending American troops out on another Mideast occupation.
It seems like there's a few kinks in that slinky. Obviously, that's not going to happen.
I think that'd be a tough place to be assigned if you're an American soldier. That'd be problematic at many, many levels.
And Trump officials on cue are today walking this back. The New York Times, with the diplomatic Trump officials, try to walk back Gaza takeover plan. This is not what three-dimensional geopolitical chess sounds like. It's more like cleanup on aisle one, or a lot of chess pieces knocked over in a losing game. And it's far from a doctrine where the U.S. uses power to set goals and limits that other countries follow. Trump's own aides are retracting this policy statement. And that means something very simple that will matter for the years to come. To agree with Trump today, you have to disagree with him yesterday. And this matters around the world. The broader theme here is that if you confront this, it may actually help everyone dealing with the Trump administration. There's no sign that this stuff is going to change overnight, this approach. Consider that today, Wednesday, Trump is softening those big Gaza claims from yesterday. On Monday, he backed down from his big tariff threats from the weekend. May not be America first, but it does seem like talk first, and then think later, and then maybe take back what you said. On the tariff war, that strangely gives Canada and Mexico more leverage, which is the opposite of what Donald Trump said his plan and strategy was. Again, not three-dimensional chess, because it shows these other countries how you face Trump down. Get him to narrow his demands, walk it all back. Just as many of his own allies think he squandered the Mideast meeting yesterday, or take immigration, something where he and his team says this is a big deal, a big priority. He's talked about mass deportations. Okay. But he hasn't paired that talk, some might say bluster, with the federal governing planning or the congressionally needed funding to get near the numbers that he wanted. I'm going to follow the evidence and the data with you, not the rest of it. So we will show you here reporting on these first 2 weeks. It could change, but in the first 2 weeks, the number of daily ICE arrests are about where they were under Obama, a Democratic White House. Thousands have been quietly released for lack of detention capacity, meaning they haven't yet done the actual governing work with the Congress of getting the funding and then the building to increase capacity. So they're now doing the thing that they used to complain about, releasing the people back in the United States. I'm not telling you what to think about that. You can say that's good, bad, or in between. But that's what's happening. Against that backdrop is what you see on your screen. You will know those kind of facts, Obama-level immigration policy, catch and release, as some called it in political rhetoric. You'll know that if you read or follow factual news. If you don't, and I recognize the paradox, whether you're watching this live or on YouTube, if if you are watching this, you're watching The Beat, MSNBC Factual News, but for others who aren't, they might only see what I am giving you a little peek of. The well-known fact that you got to do horse patrols, right? You might only see the PR horse. We'll put it back up if we have it. I know I left it up for a while, but we'll re-rack when we can. Yeah, they're playing that on Fox. I just want you to know, if you get in a conversation with someone and you say, well, they're still doing the so-called catch and release and Obama-level deportations, you might run into another person in the country who says, well, I saw the horse patrol on Fox. I'm sure you did. That's the optics. Now, depending on the many may welcome, what I'm showing you is a problem in how Trump and his aides are governing. A competence issue. Republicans don't really want Trump to succeed on a new Mideast occupation. So if he's brainstorming that on the fly and then it fails, they may actually like that type of incompetence in government. Again, not three-dimensional chess. Liberals might not want Trump to effectively supersize deportations. And so they might be happy with this level of incompetence. The Trump show, as always, is different than the results of Trump in charge. And I am not saying, and we are not reporting, and we don't have the evidence to substantiate the claim that it's just been 2 weeks of the horse ride-alongs. There are also, against this backdrop, these serious things happening. And an informed citizenry and an informed world needs to know that Trump did issue irreversible pardons to violent January 6 convicts, including those who attacked police. He did it, it's true, and it's not going away. It is a part of the danger that we face in the United States right now because he's freed and immunized under federal policy these violent people. He is giving billionaire Elon Musk these powers. We showed you that. Today, his DOJ is launching a new program that could lead to revenge investigations and indictments of people who held Trump accountable when he was a citizen. Federal policies have changed under Trump and already are having the intended effect of hospitals denying health care to individuals, sometimes based on their chosen or lived identity. Just like his judges from the last term, the first term, did use their power to ultimately overturn about 50 years of precedent and changing abortion rights in this country. So there are many real things also happening against the optics and the incompetence. Our colleague Rachel Maddow recently focusing on this aspect of the competing realities.
It doesn't mean that they don't have the worst and most malicious intentions. They clearly do. But it gives lie to the fact that they're just not that good at any of the things they're trying to do. That level of stupidity has the benefit of making us less intimidated by them because they're being dumb. It also has the benefit of emboldening people to push back.
That's just one part of the dynamics here. And what's funny that you know from politics, and the Trump MAGA era has been really intense, supersized politics, but what you know from it is sometimes there's this strange meeting where the empty threats of an extremist are met by their foes saying, see, this proves their extremism. And you could substitute any word in that sentence just about. Their incompetence, their bluster, even at times, I would only say it when the facts support it, their apparent stupidity about a topic. Like whether anyone in the Middle East, Israeli, Palestinian, Saudi, Egypt, wants the United States to come do another occupation, let alone the American people and our brave men and women in uniform. So you can say all of that, and you get this circle where the foes say, see, it proves how extreme he is. And the truth is complicated because on one hand, it does, but on the other hand, it's a lot of noise about things that aren't happening because they are not good enough and competent enough to execute them, while a bunch of other things are also happening. I didn't say it'd be easy. I just said we would follow it together as factually as we can. With that in mind, we bring in the great Maya Wiley, who joins me and another special guest when we're back in 90 seconds.
My moderate to severe Crohn's symptoms kept me out of the picture. Now I have Skyrizi.
And now I'm back in the picture. Feel significant symptom relief at 4 weeks with Skyrizi, including less abdominal pain and fewer bowel movements. Skyrizi helped visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining. And with Skyrizi, many were in remission at 12 weeks, at 1 year, and even at 3 years.
Don't use if allergic. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's.
Now's the time to take control of your Crohn's. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 prescribed biologic in Crohn's disease.
For more than a decade, Farxiga has been trusted again and again and again. Ask your doctor about Farxiga.
Power E-Trade's easy-to-use tools like dynamic charting and risk-reward analysis help make trading feel effortless. And its customizable scans with social sentiment help you find and unlock opportunities in the market. E-Trade from Morgan Stanley.
The president says he wants Gaza and he wants to make it beautiful. What is the impact of this intention?
Well, the impact is to try to distract Americans from the real story. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are trying to seize control of the government.
We're joined by Maya Wiley, former SDNY civil prosecutor, president and CEO for the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, and DC reporter from Talking Points Memo, Kate Riga. Welcome to both of you. Maya, what do you see in that contrast that we showed? The world, forget U.S. politics, the world decided it was very necessary to respond to an unserious claim about U.S. occupation, and yet there's so much going on that is more likely to happen than that, and then there is the sort of overarching incompetence that I showed with data.
Well, I would say that Donald Trump is allergic to facts, but that would suggest that it isn't intentional, because we don't decide whether we're allergic or not, we just are. But Donald Trump decides what is good for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump decides when it is in his interest to say whatever the heck he thinks is in his interest, and facts have never mattered. There's nothing new here, but the generation of chaos, the generation of distraction, I agree with you and your setup. This is about distraction because the more he can sow the seeds of look over here, look over here, look over here, he can say, and don't look at all these ways that I am absolutely blowing up your rights, that I'm absolutely blowing up the ability of government to serve you, and that I'm absolutely ensuring that it serves not only my personal ends, but the ends of my billionaire friends.
Kate?
Yeah, I mean, this is why Trump is so hard to cover, right? Because a lot of the time it's bluster and posturing, but, you know, sometimes he makes good on it. But I think it sometimes leads us into this trap where we believe that Trump is this impeccably savvy politician, even when he falls flat on his face with, you know, the funding freeze reversal or backing down on the tariffs. It's spun as, oh, that's high level, you know, distraction techniques, or as you say, 3D chess, where sometimes it's just pure incompetence. You know, he does fail a lot. And I think his administration continues to vacillate between these poles of incompetence and maliciousness. And then the task is, you know, separating the signal from the noise.
Maya, we look at this and it's almost tired or cliche to talk about, if not this story, the other. There's a lot going on. But if not for the global reaction, I showed the front pages on this brainstorm about U.S. occupation in the Middle East, which almost nobody seems to want, would be this headline here. New York Times, Justice Department accuses FBI leaders of insubordination. Because some people are apparently resisting what they view as potentially abusive or unlawful demands to do internal retribution. Then Attorney General Bondi, on her first day in office, has what they call, this isn't really a formal legal term usually, but quote, a weaponization working group. But what it does is examine, you see Jack Smith and his staff, Manhattan DA Bragg, New York AG James, their respective staffs. There's no effort here to put this in a larger context. It seems that the Trump revenge is the point. Is that a proper approach for the DOJ on day one? And what should be done about it?
Oh, well, you mean the nation's largest law enforcer weaponized to go after people who are abiding by the law. Yeah, I think that is not its role on day one or day two or frankly any day. But I would also say this, you know, they told us in Project 2025, the blueprint from the Heritage Foundation, written by people like Ross Vogt, who brought us the funding freeze before he was even confirmed, assuming he will be, hope he won't be. But, you know, when you think about this, they've told us they were going to do it. They're actually doing it. So we need to stop suggesting that we don't know whether he'll do or not what he has said he will do, what he has promised, what he was actually indicted for doing to the Department of Justice, which is trying to make it his tool of retribution. He said it in rallies. But I don't think we have completely unpacked, and we need to. If you can do this to FBI agents, you can do it to anyone. If you can go after an elected official who's a law enforcer who you have no jurisdiction over in the person of a district attorney from Manhattan, you can do it to anyone. And the reason we have civil rights laws and constitutional rights and an agency that is supposed to be independent when it uses its prosecutorial power, it is because it is so dangerous if we allow one person to use it as his own personal weapon.
Do you think that their intent will be to indict these individuals?
I think their intent will be to take it as far as they can. And the truth is that these people will have lawyers, they will have defenses, they will have the potential for civil suits, just ask Peter Strzok. But we also have in our own courts, and remember that we have judges on the bench today who will pay attention to the Constitution and the rule of law. So this is far from over, and the most important thing is that we have public servants like these FBI agents saying, nah, I'm not gonna do it.
Right, and that's why I present both those together. I mean, Kate, this is the other giant development today, which in years past would have been, quote, unthinkable in the United States. Well, it's not unthinkable. President Biden left office with an unusual set of pardons, both self-interested, his family, and other public officials. It's striking to now catch up with that fact, which came right around the 20th and was again, a lot going on, Kate. But there were critics who said, well, is he overreacting or is he sort of setting his own precedent? You didn't see Fauci on this list because they don't have any federal hook if he is fully pardoned. I'm curious how the Biden pardons look to you as a reporter now that we're seeing what looks like a target list.
Yeah, my biggest opposition to the Biden pardons wasn't so much that he was doing it, but that he wasn't using them to tell people a bigger story of Trump's vengefulness. And the fact that while we're trying to kind of sort out, like you say, what's rhetoric and what's real, that if there's one thing you can take to the bank every time, it's people who Trump feels have wronged him, right? This was just an this was something that it was pretty clear he was going to do. And now we're seeing it come to pass. And so, yeah, I mean, I think people in the FBI are very vulnerable here. Anyone who's kind of reappears in all of his rally speeches about, people who have wronged him personally.
Yeah, Kate Riga and Maya Wiley on these big stories. Our thanks. Up ahead, there is also blowback from top Democrats finding ways to seize this moment, and we're seeing more protests around the country. Howard Dean, who I mentioned on the history of the anti-war movement, as we look at Mideast occupation plans, our special guest coming up.